Hello, my dears. Welcome. I'm Lady Creepypasta. A couple of announcements before we begin. First off, I apologize for the lack of uploads. It was not my intention, but a huge life change is happening for me at the moment. I am admittedly feeling a bit down. It truly does feel like my entire realm is falling apart, but I am attempting to stay positive and look on the bright side of things. Change is always traumatic, but the end of one thing only signals the beginning of something else, right? So I am staying positive. I had planned so many things for this month, and am so very disappointed at the timing of everything, but I suppose there is no such thing as good timing for one's realm to be torn apart. I do ask though, my lovelies, that if you believe in an entity you call God, to say a prayer for me, and if you don't, send me positive vibes instead. I really do need them. I will perhaps one day speak on this, but for now, forgive me for my lack of uploads and the vague reasons as to why. On a more exciting note, my Round 2 Chilling Tales for Dark Nights Evil Idol entry comes out this evening. A direct link to the episode will be posted in the episode description once it's live. Also, if you have been following me on social media, you will know that I have some souls up for adoption in the form of creepy dollies. The first is Marabella. A link to view her is in this episode description. Alternatively, go to facebook.com/Lady Creepypasta to view photos of her. Her adoption fee is just $66.66, and this includes postage to anywhere in the United States. She also comes with her very own death certificate, signed by yours truly. Now, on with today's story. This evening's tale was submitted by author Jennifer Winters. Let's just get straight to it, shall we? Come, lean in closer, and we'll begin. Mama, when are you coming? My youngest son's voice shook as he spoke. I listened to the voicemail one more time, then deleted it. My heart ached a bit from hearing the pain in his voice. I'd call him as soon as I finished my swim, and then look at the calendar for a good weekend to make the 5-hour drive to see him, his brothers, and their dad, my husband. Mummy needed a break, I murmured towards the mobile in my hand, noticing 2 women who were leaving the pool center as I walked towards its front doors give me a glance, and then look at each other with a knowing, disapproving nod. This was a small town, if it could even be called a town, and it was well known that I was the evil woman who had stayed behind when her husband had been transferred to Charlotte. I was the sorry excuse of a mother who let her 4 children go, the youngest being only 7 years old, and all because I needed a break. Yes, I knew it was selfish, and yes, I did read Eat, Pray, Love shortly before I made my decision to go my own way for a while. My husband and I had been married the summer after our sophomore year at Ole Miss. We'd had a clear vision of finishing up at the university while living in the housing for married students, with our part-time jobs at fast food joints providing plenty of income when combined with our scholarships and grants. It had only taken 1 semester to show us how naive we'd been. I'd ended up quitting school with the understanding that I would support both of us by working full-time while my husband finished up his degree, and then I would go back to school as soon as he graduated and found work. The second half of the plan never happened. I was already pregnant with our oldest boy just before my husband graduated with his engineering degree. He got a good job right away, and we decided that I would be a stay-at-home mom until the baby was big enough for pre-K. Then came babies 2, 3, and 4. Number 4 was a surprise. the child of my impending middle age. A new job for my husband at a startup that promised a high quality of living brought us to this small Kentucky town between babies 3 and 4. The folks here were generally warm and friendly, but there was a clear line between those who were from here and those who weren't. I grew more and more frustrated with my lack of a life outside motherhood and wifery, until it put me in a perpetual state of anger and resentment. I loved my children passionately, but I constantly dreamed about a life as a single woman with no kids. Is there a life out there, and all that? So earlier this year, when my husband got a sudden lucrative job offer in Charlotte, I encouraged him to take it, then informed him that I would be staying behind. Mommy needed a break. Truth be told, I was angry, not at my husband and the boys, but at myself for feeling so trapped, for needing some time not to be a wife and mom. I was angry for saying that's fine too many times when it wasn't fine, and for not asking for help when I needed it. I was angry at myself for not feeling more guilt about what I was doing. After my children and husband left for Charlotte, I got a job in a used bookstore and answered an ad for a housemate. The placer of the ad turned out to be a ridiculously sexy man, about 15 years my junior. We'd been housemates for 4 months, and the sexual tension was thick as molasses, to me anyway. Nothing had happened yet, just mild to heavy flirtation that was steadily getting heavier. In fact, just this morning he'd suggested that I try out his jacuzzi bathtub when I commented on being sore from yesterday's workout. I'd begun working out in earnest when I decided that his seeing me naked was a possibility. My roomie's invitation was replaying in my brain as I walked through the front door of the pool center. More people exited as I entered. This was precisely why I chose to take my lunch break later than usual. The pool center was on a lovely wooded property about 3 miles down a country road that wound away from the single intersection in what we called downtown. With membership costing just $12 a month, it was no wonder that it was both run down and popular. The whole place was in need of repair, with missing tiles, showers with oxidized heads, and a sauna with worn, splintered wood. That said, it was usually crowded, with at least 2 swimmers to a lane. Just last week, I'd smacked heads with a retiree who had decided to share my lane without letting me know. It was around 2:10 in the afternoon when I approached the front desk to sign in. Miss Annie, one of the matrons who had managed the pool center since we moved here 11 years ago, looked up, surprised. "Hi, Andrea. What are you doing here?" She seemed genuinely perplexed at my presence. "I'm going to get my laps in," I answered with a smile. "But it's almost 2. She seemed to be weighing her words. "Nobody swims at 2:00. I answered, "Yes, ma'am, I know. I've noticed that the pool generally clears out around now, so I figured that it was a good time to get a lane to myself." Miss Annie removed her silver-rimmed glasses and looked at me hard, not unkindly, but as if she wanted to make sure I understood. "Andrea, nobody swims at 2:00. "Well," I stammered, confused. "The pool is open at 2, right?" "Oh, yes. We're open from 6 in the morning until 9 at night. Nobody swims at 2:00. Miss Annie held my gaze, her head bobbing in a slight nod. I smiled and told her that having the pool to myself sounded perfect. I went into the changing room, unlocked my locker, and quickly changed into my suit. After a quick mandatory shower, I entered the pool room. The pool looked like any indoor pool. Olympic length, 6 lanes, in need of resurfacing. Some of the overhead lights were burned out, with one flickering. The other pool center manager, Miss Lila, sat on the lifeguard's seat, almost regally. I always wondered what she'd do if someone were to start drowning, given her advanced age.
"Andrea," she said, "Miss Annie told you that no one swims at 2:00?
"Yes, ma'am," I answered, feeling a bit annoyed and confused.
"The pool is open, isn't it?" "Oh, yes, it's open, but nobody swims at this hour."
Her face took on a matronly look of an older woman dispensing wisdom to a young girl, which I was not.
"Great,"
I answered. I jumped into the water. The soreness from yesterday's workout eased a bit as soon as I hit the cool water. Twisting this way and that, I did a quick stretch and decided to start with a backstroke. Checking the red numbers on the old digital clock that was mounted on the wall, I started timing myself at 1:59. As I began my first lap, I let my mind wander. I thought of my boys. The oldest was pretty pissed at me, and the youngest missed me terribly. I missed them too, despite my almost frantic need for a break. And that's what it was, right? I still wanted to grow old with my husband, just not right now. My mind shifted to sexy housemate. Despite my lust for him, I had no desire for a real relationship. I just wanted to test the jacuzzi, so to speak. Just one time, maybe two, and then I could seriously think about going to Charlotte. By the time I finished my first length, the flickering of the defective overhead light was getting on my nerves and my arms and legs felt a bit heavy, so I flipped over to do a crawl. The clock was at 1:59:32. My thoughts went back to my boys, how much I missed them despite enjoying some freedom after so many years. Could their dad forgive me? My legs really are tired. Slow down a bit. He says he understands. Damn, what a good man. Always such a good man, down to his bones. Legs are so tired, so heavy. Should I stop for a few seconds? Should I... Something was wrong. In my reverie, I had stopped swimming about halfway through the second length, aware that my arms and legs had simply ceased moving. Maybe I should change from a crawl to a breaststroke. I tried to bend my knees and pressed the soles of my feet together to get started. My legs didn't respond. Neither did my arms. I was spread eagle, floating on top of the water. Beneath me, the light refracted, playing its usual tricks. I noticed that the flickering caused by the faulty light stopped, the light shining steadily, as it should. I needed to take a breath, but my head would not turn to the side. Too confused to feel afraid, I blew the air out of my lungs. I immediately realized my mistake. Unable to move and now needing badly to inhale, I began to sink. I only heard the muffled roar of the pool pump and nothing else. Not even my heartbeat. Where was Miss Lila? Surely she could see that I was in trouble. Why couldn't I move? Was I having a stroke? The rising panic would have brought me to tears had I been able to breathe. As I watched the floor of the pool draw nearer, my thoughts turned to my children. How could I have let them go? They were all such good boys. I wanted to see them. And their daddy. My children may be permanently motherless because of my stupid soap opera fantasy. I continued to slowly sink towards the bottom of the pool, my lungs now burning with the need to breathe. "Mama, when are you coming?" My baby's voice in my head gave me a rush of determination. Fiercely, I willed my limbs to move, my legs to kick. Now! Nothing moved. My lungs didn't burn anymore. I reached the bottom of the pool and kept sinking, down, and the floor of the pool was now a ceiling over my head, growing ever more distant. Miss Lila joined Miss Annie in the lobby. They didn't speak for a while. Andrea was gone. Not dead, not alive, just gone. The security camera at the front door would provide footage to show her leaving at around 2:45 p.m., her hair wet and a towel in her hand, even though such a thing had never actually happened. The sheriff wouldn't call for an inquiry. He never did. The 2:00 swimmer would quickly fade from everyone's memory, as was always the case. Her husband would give up looking for her much sooner than he probably should. The boys would grieve and then, after a while, only vaguely remember that they'd had a mama. Miss Lila would see to Andrea's car in a few minutes before any 3:00 swimmers arrived. When they did arrive, they would note the unbroken, perfect tiles and newly sealed pool surfaces with a detached approval. They would admire the new soft lighting in the pool room. They would comment on how wonderful the new cedar sauna smelled and moan in pleasure when they stood under the fancy massaging shower heads that were now in place. It wouldn't occur to any of them to wonder how all of the improvements on the pool center were made in a single hour. It never ever occurred to them to wonder at the two old ladies who had managed the pool center for as long as anyone could remember, even those who had been swimming at the pool center from kindergarten to geriatric care. Miss Annie spoke. "That should do for a long while," she paused, then continued. "I hate it when they have children. It's better when they're single or old." Miss Lila just grunted. "I know that she let her family leave," Miss Annie continued, "but she was all right. People get fed up, especially the mamas, it seems. Pulled every which way, I think." Miss Lila grunted again. In the beginning, before there was even a town, when the pool was nothing more than a deep depression in a large stone, they came willingly. Well, if not willingly, then with a sense of duty. Miss Annie didn't mind it so much then. Miss Annie asked, as she did every few 100 years, "And all we can say is that people don't swim at 2:00. Not much of a warning. Why can't we just get a hateful person to swim at 2:00? Miss Lila didn't answer for a moment. Finally, she turned and looked Miss Annie dead in the eye. "You know that's not how it works. Anyway, it wasn't a punishment for anything. It just worked out that way. This time." Miss Annie nodded and rose from her stool and busied herself setting out the clipboard with a new sign-in sheet for the 3:00 swimmers as Miss Lila straightened up and went to the locker room to clean out Andrea's locker. I suppose you really should listen to your elders. That's it for today, my dears. Remember to vote for my Round 2 Chilling Tales for Dark Knight's Evil Idol entry. The easiest way to keep up to date with the contest is just to subscribe to their YouTube channel. Till next time, my dears, sweet dreams.